Seven is one of my favourite films of all time. Being such a masterful blend of noir and horror, you might be surprised to hear that the film received an initial tepid response from the 90s audience. Then again, maybe you wouldn't. This was the film that had agents banning their clients from auditioning because they thought the script was evil. Oh, that's reasonable. But it grew in prestige over the years, often imitated by Fincher himself no less, but rarely duplicated.
Get you caught.
The film oozes an uncomfortable, itchy atmosphere. The cinematography and set design is still an artistic marvel to this day. But it's the character work that really shines. Two figures searching for a way to cope and attain logos in their life, surrounded by apathy and evil.
You say that the problem with people is that they don't care. So I don't care about people. It makes no sense. You know why?
You care.
You want to know? Damn right.
And you're gonna make a difference.
The gruesome murders acting as catalytic pacebreakers from their introspective journeys. And today we're going to revisit and re-examine a few elements that have been bugging me for a while. Sloth, Wrath, and Somerset. So, I want to give a spoiler warning right now from the start. You can't experience these plot beats for the first time twice. And there's a reason it's been the source of inspiration for so many horror thrillers. If you enjoyed the recent Batman reboot, for instance, then you owe it to yourself to see the film that made it possible. For this rewatch, I saw the new remastered version, and it was okay. I don't think any changes ruined anything, but, for my recommendation, I still prefer the griminess and colour palette of the original cut. We good? Good.
What is that, sign language?
7. You don't risk the time it takes to do this, unless the act itself has meaning.
Back when I was a little blockhead, SE7EN's was one of the first films I studied properly, like with my psychological brain. It was a pretty big first step in seeing films past the surface level. But, novice that I was, little baby brain I had, at the time, like I see most people, I did note that Sloth and Wrath didn't exactly fit the killer's MO. For one reason or another, they just didn't track. In Seven, two detectives hunt down a serial killer that is ritualistically murdering people he feels embody the 7 deadly sins, killing them in gruesome, thematically appropriate tableaus, with 2 exceptions. Sloth, who didn't seem to be doing anything particularly slothful.
You got what you deserved.
If you go ahead and listen very carefully, you'll hear the familiar sound of no one caring.
And Wrath, who he lets live. At the time, I just kind of wrote it off as no film or no killer being perfect. Having rewatched the re-release in cinemas, I feel like it all finally clicked. Firstly, we have to understand the film's core message, which also aligns with John Doe, the killer's motivation, and Detective Somerset's narrative arc. God. The world has gone to shit. Everyone in the film seems to think so.
Guy's out walking his dog. Gets attacked. His watch is taken, his wallet. While he's lying there on the sidewalk, helpless, his attacker stabs him in both eyes. This happened just last night, about 4 blocks from here.
And they're probably not wrong. A microcosm of wider society, Seven is set in an anonymous, brutalist city, so scummy it'd make a Gothamite move.
I don't think I'm the one to talk to about this.
I hate this city.
Murder, assault, perversion. If you can think about it, it's happening. But what really seems to get at Somerset and Doe isn't the evil around them, but the apathy of everyone else towards it. as the head of a whorehouse admits.
Do you like what you do for a living? These things you see? No. No, I don't. But that's life, isn't it?
And once caught, John Doe admits this freely in the car ride to his grand finale.
We see a deadly sin on every street corner, in every home, and we tolerate it. We tolerate it because it's common, it's trivial.
It's the ignition, the whole point of his masterpiece. He has righteous hatred for those he kills, for sure.
And let's not forget the disease-spreading whore. A drug dealer, a drug-dealing pederast, actually. So ugly on the inside that she couldn't bear to go on living if she couldn't be beautiful on the outside. By lying with every breath that he could muster. A woman!
But there's a grander purpose to his spree. As he says,
setting the example. And what I've done is going to be puzzled over and studied and followed.
the murders are a wake-up call, a call to action. It's John's desire to shock people out of this apathy, to see the evil around them with as much hatred as he does, so they'll fight against it.
Wanting people to listen, you can't just tap them on the shoulder anymore. You have to hit them with a sledgehammer. And then you'll notice you've got their strict attention.
With this key, we unlock our first answer.
I don't understand this place anymore.
It's the way it's always been.
Maybe you're right.
So here's where we understand Sloth. At first, it doesn't seem as obvious as the other murders. A fat guy is force-fed until he bursts.
Gluttony?
A rich, scummy lawyer is made to cut out a pound of his flesh.
Greed?
A prostitute is killed by a client via sex she sold to him.
Lust?
A model made to choose overdosing over living with severe disfigurement.
Pride?
I won't deny my own personal desire to turn each sin against the sinner.
Sloth is different. In fact, he's quite the shitty little go-getter, described as a drug-dealing p***ile. Child-liker, and quite an infamous one at that. By all accounts, he should be locked away forever, if not worse. But he was able to get out of doing any time with the right lawyer. Well, it doesn't really seem particularly slothful, does it? I mean, his death sure does. Tied to a bed for a year and kept alive as he wastes away to mush. As the doctor says,
he's experienced about as much pain and suffering as anyone I've encountered, give or take. And he still has hell to look forward to.
Now, none of the victims got off lightly, but it's a hard argument to make that anyone got it worse than this guy. But then, that also makes sense. Sloth is the sin Doe reviles the most. Laziness, passiveness, complacency.
On the subway today, a man came up to me to start a conversation. He made small talk, this lonely man talking about the weather and other things. I tried to be pleasant and accommodating, but my head began to hurt from his banality. I almost didn't notice it had happened, but I suddenly threw up all over him. He was not pleased.
It's the trigger, the reason he started his crusade. The victim didn't particularly embody or exude the sin in his actions, but he did through his existence. He was someone who was openly evil, a twisted man who should have been dealt with, if not by the police or the courts, then by someone. But thanks to society's cultural indifference, he was able to walk around free and continue. He was born through society's sloth, and he thrived in it. In this sense, he was actually the perfect choice for this totem, representing the worst of what indulging in this sin can indirectly create.
Only in a world this shitty could you even try to say these were innocent people and keep a straight face.
Doing research. So much freaking research. Looking through old books and old documents.
So much material.
me off.
Okay. It's impressive to see a man feeding off his emotions.
Which brings us to Wrath, another victim who might seem atypical, just in different ways. Detective Mills certainly fits the archetype. Quick to anger, slow to think. We see both an indication of his suitability and a foreshadowing of his fate in the apartment building. He wants They have Doe's place and he wants to get in, but Somerset begs him to wait. They need a reason to be there and a warrant, or they risk any evidence found inside being inadmissible. Mills pretends to relent, but he's too hyped up and angry and breaks the door down. In a competition between logic and wrath, Wrath will always win for Mills. Yet he gets to live, the only one of the seven. Taunted with his wife's death, John Doe begs him to
I'm vengeance, David. Ah, she's all right. You tell me. Become Wrath.
while Somerset tries again to get him to relent, to not let him win. But like with the door, he's just unable to stop himself. Still, either way, his survivability was assured. And that's because Doe definitely does see wrath as a sin, but I think he also sees it as a necessary one. Again, if he detests apathy and indifference to evil, I believe he sees righteous anger as the way to fight it. Once again, very openly, he admits this in that car ride, insulted at the suggestion of his victims' innocence, and ruminating on his hatred of them.
Don't ask me to pity those people. I don't mourn them any more than I do the thousands that died at Sodom and Gomorrah.
He even makes reference to Sodom and Gomorrah, a story of a town so morally corrupt that a vengeful god burned the whole place down. I even believe that at one point John Doe saw himself as embodying wrath, an executor of righteous vengeance, of forced attrition to the victims and society as a whole.
Tell me, what was the indisputable evidence you were going to use on me right before I walked up to you and put my hands in the air?
John, calm down.
But at some point, he decided that Mills better embodied the sin.
Sit back, you fucking freak! Shut your fucking mouth! You're no messiah. You're a movie of the week. You're a fucking t-shirt, at best.
In fact, not at some point, at this point, right here.
You're only alive because I didn't kill you.
Instead, almost like an afterthought, he chooses to give in to his doubts, his feelings of wanting a normal life, his longing to have a happy home and a wife just like Mills. And this is why Wrath isn't excised at the end of the killing spree like everyone else. It's something Doe thinks the world needs, something he wants to cultivate in the population after he's gone. A necessary evil for an evil world. And looking back, when Mills first moves to the unnamed city, Somerset asks why he went there of all places. Mills answers characteristically bluntly.
You actually fought to get reassigned here. I've just never seen it done that way before.
Thought I could do some good. Look.
He wants to make a difference. Darkly poetic, as Doe would soon make plans to have him do just that.
I'm gonna open it.
Gruesome, isn't it?
Is that to say, John, that what you were doing was God's good work?
Lord works in mysterious ways.
You know, it's never really vibed right with me when people say that 7 ends with the killer winning. I mean, that kind of implies all he wanted to do was off 5 people and then die. But by that rule, I mean, sure, he measured up, he completed his plan, But did he actually achieve what he sought to achieve? Because he did want more. He wanted to inspire hate and violent retribution in the wider population. And we never do see if he succeeded in that or not. But we know at least one person it didn't work on, leaving this bleak, depressing film on at least a tiny note of hope, in my opinion. Somerset is caught in the middle. He spends the whole film inching towards his retirement, a decision made out of a weariness for the darkness around him. Though he is affected by the crime and the pain that runs rampant, he's on a path to the apathy both he and Doe detest.
How did you get like this?
There wasn't one thing, I can tell you that.
Go on.
I just don't think I can continue to live in a place that embraces and nurtures apathy as if it was a virtue.
He wants to escape, not just physically, but mentally. To stop caring and being disturbed by all of this. But as Mills tells him, that's just not who he is.
Is that I don't think you're quitting because you believe these things you say. I don't. I think you want to believe them because you're quitting.
Now, if the film had ended with Somerset retiring, I think that would reinforce the beliefs Doe had on the world. On the other hand, if he got mad, vowing to take back the streets like some kind of old Punisher, then he would have legitimized Doe's work. It's a lose-lose. Instead, when asked if he's still going to retire, he denies it, responding in a tired voice that
I'll be around.
Followed by the famous closing line.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
Which makes all the more sense in its full context.
He looked down the hill slope again, and he thought, I hate to leave it, that is all. I hate to leave it very much, and I hope I have done some good in it. The world is a fine place and worth the fighting for, and I hate very much to leave it.
He is not retreating. Somerset has been taken out of his apathy, but not because Doe had convinced him, but because he saw the harm that is done when good people lie back. He is not wrathful or vengeful, but as he has been throughout the film, steady, objective, and valuing the goodness he saw, like in Tracy.
The soothing, relaxing, vibrating home. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all right, laugh it up.
Seven poses the idea that there are two choices in the face of overwhelming evil. To avert your eyes, to detach and let it grow under the surface as long as it doesn't infect you. Alternatively, to get angry, to lash out in a wrathful burst of righteous fury. And it still hits home today, because these are paths we see people at large struggle with every day. But what resonates with me is its answer. Somerset chooses neither. He decides to keep facing that darkness, but not with hate in his heart. And you know, maybe that won't work, but it's better than the alternatives. Thank you for watching the video, and big thanks to Vimes, who lent his voice to the Hemingway quote. You might have noticed it went up and went down a few times. There was a few things I had to tinker with, but we're back on track, and I've got a few fun videos in the pipeline. A bit of Proro, a bit of Scuba to do coming your way, and hopefully I'll see you then. Until next time, remember to stay a head in a box. Bye.